Okay. Hello, I am back. So, we just finished up talking about You Don't Have to Paint Me a Picture, the album. Recorded, probably October through December of '66, because like I said, they were doing massive touring. But then Gary got his draft notice. Which, of course, was gonna, put some kind of stop to the band. And this is kind of where Gary does not really have any more hits because he was not able to go on the road to promote the records anymore. So this left, what are we going to do? So he was just hoping that they could keep going. And they did. This is going to be, this latter half of his career, when he was in the service, when he got out, different things like that. So the first couple months of him being in the service was, basic training and stuff. So he was able to be home. Also, right before this, during the Paint Me a Picture sessions, they recorded the single, The Loser with a Broken Heart, backed with Ice Melts in the Sun, which did not do very well. The Loser with a Broken Heart, it got to 43, which is okay, but I mean, not very good compared to Where Will the Words Come From, which got to 21. And the flip side, Ice Melts in the Sun, actually got to a number 121. And I personally think Ice Melts in the Sun would have been a slightly better A-side. It's got a really nice melody and a pretty cool little message behind it. But really great single. For some reason, did not wind up on the next album that we're going to talk about, New Directions. Don't know, I'm not sure why it wasn't on there. It would have made a really great addition to the album. So, right before Gary went over to, I believe, South Africa, I believe I'm right, he went overseas. Him and the band that's on Paint Me a Picture, the band of Carl Riedel on bass, of course Gary on vocals and rhythm guitar, Tom Tripplehorn on lead guitar, Jim Karstein on drums, and John West on quarterbacks. They knocked out the album New Directions, which I believe having a very big profile picture of Gary is kind of a waste of an album cover. I love Gary, but I think they could have gotten a nice picture of the Playboys on there. It would have been really cool. One single came out of the album. That was Girls in Love, back with Let's Be More Than Friends. Girls in Love is like a big 40-piece orchestra on it, and Gary kind of said that he wasn't really a fan of that whole thing. He said it didn't really suit them. I think it does. The bass line in this from Carl is great. Carl's bass on this album, this is his best album in terms of bass playing. So, backed with Let's Be More Than Friends, Girls in Love only got to 39, which is a little bit better than The Loser with a Broken Heart, which got to 43, but still not a very big chart topper. So this album was recorded basically, probably March, April, mostly April of '67. But it's one of my favorite albums. It's a big step up from Paint Me a Picture, having half originals, half covers. The majority of this album is originals, not Gary originals. This is also the first album, first of only two, where Gary and the guys hooked up with Bonner and Gordon. So, yeah, and also the producers, producers on this are Koppelman, Rubin, and Klein, not Snuff. So it's kind of vibe the whole thing with Snuff is because he produced the first few, then he didn't for a while, and then he somehow wound up producing Paint Me a Picture. Then after these few that we're going to talk about in '67, he came back and produced Now, but we'll get to that a little later. So now we can get into the basic tracks of this. This opens with Girls in Love. Again, I already really talked about that one. Track 2, Double Good Feeling, another Bonner and Gordon original. Tom's little guitar to lead off the track is great. I like the harmonies in this too. I think this would have been a pretty good single. This would have actually been a pretty good follow-up to Girls in Love. Track 3 is Keepin' Company. It's pretty much the album style. It's, pretty cool. Tom's guitar in this is pretty cool. Here I Am, I believe John starts this out, on the quarterbox, actually sounding like an accordion, even though it's not an accordion. But it's a really cool song. It reminds me of New in Town, which also was on this album, which we'll get to in a little bit. because he talks about, here I am, it's my first trip to New York. And that's kind of what he's talking about in New in Town, but he's living, you know, in that place. But again, one of my favorites from the album. Hello Sunshine, it's a very weird track, but I love it. It's just guitar and, like, a little bit of bass for, like, the whole song. Besides the last 10 seconds, Gary sings the last line, and the drums come in, and it's just, like, for the last, like, maybe 8 seconds, the band comes in. I'm like, what? The first time I heard it, it scared me. I'm like, okay. But again, it fits very well with the concept. The closing track, Tom's really big chance on the album to show off his guitar duties, and really, he wouldn't get much of a chance to do that for a while, sadly. And that is Neighborhood Rock and Roll Band. Tom's got like 3 guitar overdubs going on here, and Gary's vocal is, very typical of Gary's vocal style, and, I think he could have got a bit of a harder edge on it, but his vocal style, you know, is really what makes the song have a bit of fun in it. Especially, dig that mellow riff right before Tom plays the guitar solo, but right at the end. And the guitar solo doesn't come in for another, like, 10 seconds after Gary says that. I don't know what the deal was there, but, Tom is showing his amazing guitar genius on that track. One of my favorites out of his whole catalog. So, side 2 opens up with New in Town. Pretty similar to Girls in Love, but with a different kind of storyline. It's kind of got the same kind of thing going on. Starts off with Carl's bass, just like Girls in Love. And I like it just as much as Girls in Love. One of my favorites from him. I really like Carl's bass, and there's especially after when the second breakdown comes, after, not the starting of it, but after the band goes out, after, like, the verse and chorus, and then just Carl on the bass and Gary on the vocal. And Carl jazzes it up, and I just love that every time I hear it. Track 2 is Slow Moving Man, which again is kind of in the same realm as Keeping Company and Hello Sunshine. And this has a bass solo. The first section of this has a bass solo, and then John does a little quarterbox, little mini solo right at the end of it, of the solo section. Like, wait, Carl's playing a bass solo? I mean, that's cool, you know, for Gary and for mid-67, that is pretty cool. A Little Love From You, again, kind of one of the, bit of a filler track. I mean, the lines, you know, of course I'd love some caviar. I mean, the song's basically about kind of like a guy who wishes he was rich, but he has a girl, and a little love from that girl will do. You know, his little chickadee. Listen to the song, you'll get a kick out of it. It's great, though. The harmonies in it, really cool. Let's Be More Than Friends, the flip side to Girls in Love. Really a great track. John's quarterbox is just kind of going along in there. Gary's vocal in it is very, very good. And Tom is just kind of just doing like a well. It's really, in the intro. And then the solo on that is really cool too. It's John and Tom. John playing the quarterback solo and Tom playing the guitar solo, but they're playing the same notes on the same instrument at the same time. Really, really enjoyable. I really love that. Track 5 on side 2 is Me About You, which is a cover. One of the most interesting tracks on their whole catalog, but definitely on this album, instrumentally. It starts just with piano, which we're not really sure who's playing. I'm not really sure who's playing piano on that. It might be Tom, because I've read stuff about him that has said he actually is a pretty accomplished pianist. So, could be him, just could be, you know, one of the guys that was in there, you know, producing it, different things like that. But again, just a really great track. Oh, you know what? I'm thinking about this, and I'm gonna go back for a second. I'm sorry, this is very, very old. Tommy Tedesco plays on Sure Gonna Miss Her and Green Grass. That's all I wanted to say on that album. and on the singles. I just wanted to go back and say that just so you guys could keep up to date on this. Sorry if you know, if anybody is keeping any track of this in terms of notes, I'm sorry. This is probably really sloppy. Back to New Directions, Me About You. So like I said, it starts off with the piano. And then Carl's bass kind of kicks in. He just plays a note every measure or something. It's kind of interesting. Then John just plays a little, like, quarterback thing for, like, 10 seconds. Cuts off. Then just some random string thing. I'm assuming it's from, John just pressing one thing on the quarterbacks because it's a very long, string thing. So, but then after that, they kind of still do the same thing. But then Tom comes in with a guitar overdub, and that kind of just sticks in there, like, out of the blue. This song just kind of has little things going out, and then right at the end, they all just kind of end on one note. Really, really interesting. And Gary's vocal in that, again, he's probably, doing a bunch of songs in one day. His vocal starts off a tiny bit rough, but then it goes perfectly, and it's a really, really great vocal from him. And the album closes with Moonshine, which we're still skeptical about who's singing the co-lead on here with Gary. Originally, I thought it could have been Carl, but I don't think so. He might be doing the falsetto parts on it, but I'm pretty sure the main co-leads besides Gary is one of the singers from the Magicians, sorry. Which, of course, Bonner and Gordon were a part of. So it's one of the guys from the Magicians, which one of them is Bonner and Gordon. Well, both Bonner and Gordon were in the Magicians, I'm pretty sure. And so it's either Bonner or Gordon, I'm pretty sure, singing the co-lead with Gary on Moonshine. New Directions came out in May of '67. And there's Gary with his girlfriend, being in the service with his dad. No pictures of the Playboys. I'm like, you have a picture of Gary with his father and his girlfriend, who I think at the time were recently married. But no pictures of the Playboys. The album did not do very, very well. It got to 185. Better than Pepper, in my opinion. Came out around the same time. So, yeah. Next album we've got here is just a compilation. I'm not going to talk much about it. From, Liberty's, subsidiary, Sunset. Because, of course he was on Liberty. Just a really basic album cover. It's just a self-titled album with some really dumb cover art. And it's just basically the track listing. It's just some covers for your originals, just to get material out, I guess, and, to make some kind of money off of it. But the album didn't do anything. It didn't chart whatsoever. It's, but, what are you gonna do? And the track listing is just 10 tracks. May the Best Man Win, My Special Angel, Time Stands Still, Without a Word of Warning, Lies, Heart Full of Soul, Walk Right Back, Needles and Pins, One Track, Mine and Free Like Me. So a bunch of covers, basically, a couple of originals. Just to get an album out, I guess, makes, whatever. So next we come to his most advanced album, I think, but with not much Playboy backing vocals, but they do some pretty good playing on this. And that is Gary Lewis. It's a self-titled, or it's not self-titled, it's credited to him alone, but on the label it's credited to Gary Lewis and the Playboys. I don't know what the deal was with that, but, And I think they definitely could have done one more with this album cover, too. So, the single from the album is Jill, which is also the opening track to the album, which I have some kind of, reason to think it was either done during the New Direction sessions or, sometime shortly after or something like that. Because, by this time he had basically gone to the service. He had, I'm pretty sure, went overseas, and they probably brought him back overseas very, very quick to do all the basic tracks with the band and get all the vocals out for this. Because this was probably done, late summer, midsummer, something like that. And the album, I believe, was released later in October. The album went nowhere. The album, I don't think charted. Nope, the album didn't chart. But hey, it's a very, very good effort, and I really, really enjoy it. I think this is definitely better than Pepper. Probably as good as Smile. But if you haven't listened to this, it's sadly not on Spotify, but it is on YouTube. So, the album opens with, like I said, Jill, the single, which got to number 52, and the B-side to it is New in Town, which is from New Directions. So they only got to 52, which, you know, again, he's slowly dropping down the charts. And then, so after that, and you get, I don't know, I don't think Gary's singing by himself on the chorus. He's either singing with Carl or with the guy from Bonner and Gordon, because they are still producing it at this point. Oh no, it's produced by Gary Klein, but it's a product of Compliment and Rubin and Associates, so it's basically, they still have a lot to do with it. Bonner and Gordon wrote quite a bit on this. Arranging conducted by Jack Nietzsche. There's a lot of strings on this album. Arranging conducted by Jack Nietzsche. And New Directions also has strings from Jack Nietzsche. So, track 2 is Don't Make Promises. I think they definitely could have used the Playboys a bit more on this album, but also on this track. Jim's drums on this are pretty simple. I think he definitely could have done more, but it's one of my favorites. Love Gary's vocal on it. She'd Rather Be With Me. Really, really great track. I'm pretty sure that's a cover, maybe. I think so. This starts off, I'm pretty sure, on the quarter box, but some really great vocals in here. Again, I think they definitely could have used the Playboys more, especially on harmony for this one. Track 4, Look Here Comes the Sun. Jim's drums on this are really amazing. I like the pickup. The chorus goes really, really great. And, I think, again, they could have had Tom play some pretty cool guitar in this, but he already is. He's playing a do-do-do-do, 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 right, do-do-do-do, something like that. Really, really cool little thing, you know, he's got to get in there somehow. But really great track, one of my favorites. Track 5 is Happiness, which was later the flip side to Has You Got the Nicest Eyes, which we will get to in a little bit. Gary's vocal, again, kind of reverberated, too, on his vocal on this, and I think John's playing some little quarter box things. I think that's what instrument that is, or it's a xylophone of some sort. I'm not sure. But even though there's, you know, not much guitar in this, really, really great song, and Gary really showing off his vocal abilities here. Bring the Whole Family is the closing track to this. I think there's a bit of harmony from the Playboys on this, I think. Might be Gary by just doing the harmony, but I think it might be the Playboys. Again, really, really great track. Great way to end the first half of that album. Side 2, we finally get to hear a little bit more from Tom on his great guitar. And that's on Reason to Believe. It's kind of a country kind of song, and he even puts in his favorite little lick, which I'm surprised I haven't talked about that yet. Tom loves his little lick. It's just, first time I think he uses it is on You Didn't Have to Be So Nice on the She's Just My Style LP. And it's literally just, bo-doodle-a-doodle-a-doodle-a-doodle-doo. He uses that on so much different songs, on so many different songs. But, at the same time, he also had many different, many different riffs that he used as well. And he incorporates that just a little bit on Reason to Believe. But a really great little song. Some pretty simple drumming again, but it's really great. New Day. A fan favorite, I can definitely say. A lot of people like this one. And the ending, very odd. They bring the keys up higher and higher and higher. And I've also thought about this, is that the girl backing vocals, are they really girls, or were they Playboy backing vocals and they just brought the pitches up just because they wanted to be experimental? I don't know. On that specific track, it sounds like girls actually singing, but who knows? But really, really great song, and I like the Alvin and the Chipmunks, you know, going up higher and higher and higher at the end. Track 3, Small Talk. Again, another Bonner and Gordon, like the majority of this album. Later done by Leslie Gore as a single, went didn't go very far for her. Again, it was just an album fill for him. And Gary is doing the harmony here, the higher harmony as well as the lower, of course, because, you know. And he's, you know, really showing off, yes, you know, I can sing harmony with myself, you know. Angel on the Corner. I think this is the one, possibly, that has double-tracked bass. It's one of these on this side. It's got double-tracked bass. Amazing. I'm like, okay, Carl, you know, you're in there. And, really, really fantastic track. Pretty experimental with the whole double-track bass thing. Track 5 on that side is 6 O'Clock. One of my favorites. And even Tom, you can hear Tom sticking right there on that rhythm, doing some pretty interesting stuff with that. But it's a really interesting track. And I think my personal favorite, I don't know, I got a lot of favorites from this album. Young and Carefree, and we finally, I'm pretty sure, get to hear the Playboys definitely on this one singing harmony. And they're doing some really great stuff. You know, showing that even though they were just backing vocalists, Gary, Tom, and Carl as a vocal triad worked really well. So that's basically sums up Listen. It's a really fantastic album, and I enjoy it every time I hear it, and I enjoy it more every time I hear it. So, Gary is still in the service at this point, and he finally gets out. Well, I mean, he doesn't get out, but in late '67, he gets transferred back here, because he had, you know, he got married earlier in the year, but, his wife, Jinky, as she is nicknamed, his wife at the time, Jinky, had just had a baby in late '67. And so he came home, and I guess they let him stay home because of the baby. So he was stationed around, you know, Hollywood, LA, where he was living. So it was easier for him and the guys to get in sessions. You know, I think, you know, possibly do a few shows here and there. And also, right before he got out of the service, they released the single, Has She Got the Nicest Eyes, which, again, is like his last little thing with Bonner and Gordon and Copland and all them. Which went nowhere. The flip side is Happiness, which is from Listen, of course. Like I said, the album pretty much went nowhere, or the song didn't go anywhere, in terms of chart listings. But really great little guitar licks in here from Tom. The backing vocalists on here are kind of questionable. Is it the Playboys? I'm not sure. But, you know, the backing vocals on it, whoever it is, really, really great. So after going, you know, being in the service here for a couple months, you know, helping out, you know, spending time with his family and his baby and all that, him and the guys got the Tulsa guys back. Of course, they're all, most of them, besides John West, are from Tulsa, so whenever they recorded, they would move back, they would go back to Tulsa, but then when when they recorded with Gary, they just flew out to Hollywood and did the tracks. And around this time, Jim did some kind of album. I forgot the name of it. It's pretty psychedelic stuff. And Carl was doing various different things, but his most notable side project was doing a thing with the band Colors, which I think they did one other album after the most notable one. And he also sings the closing track, I'm pretty sure, on the First Colors album. So now I think it was probably March of '68. Gary, you know, was home, and they did this. Gary Lewis Now and the Playboys. It says that on the top, on the back, on the record label, but not on the side. On the side, it's Gary Lewis and the Playboys Now. On the spine. Again, I think this sounds like it was done in 1 or 2 days. Gary's vocal, again, also in the, when he was in the service, mostly overseas, he got into all kinds of drugs, and, I think he was smoking hashish, which would lead to him not really having a really good voice, especially if he was trying to get a bunch of tracks done in one day. So that would explain his vocal not being as good on some of these tracks. And also on the most of his vocals on this are not double tracked. But that just shows, you know, that on the ones that aren't, where he sounds good, it shows that he didn't need, you know, 4 tracks on his vocal, which they did very earlier on. And so, you know, it showed by this time he had pretty much developed as a pretty good vocalist. So this album came out in June of '68, and the one single released from it, Sealed with a Kiss, backed with Sarah Jane, which came out, I believe, a month before the album, actually did pretty good. It got to number 19, and, you know, they're like, yay, we have a hit again. You know, it took them, you know, a year and a half, but they got it. And honestly, I don't know why it did so well. It's a decent song, but his vocal on it is not his best. But I think there's definitely some songs from the album that they could have picked that would have been better choices. So it's his last charting album. It got to number 150 on the charts. Well, probably, the only reason it probably went anywhere was because it's Sealed with a Kiss. But it's only 11 tracks, too, and I really think they should have just thrown Hashy Got the Nicest Size on there to make it 12. Anyway, to the basic album. Again, this is probably recorded in March of '68. Opens with Young Girl. Cover, of course. His vocal on this is not the best, but it gets by. Really great. Some great harmonies from the band in this one. And of course, the band not for very much longer. I mean, probably till the end of the year, somewhere around there. We'll get to that in a second. But of course, the band is still Gary Lewis on vocals and rhythm guitar, Tom Tripplehorn on lead guitar, Carl Radle on bass, Jim Karstein on drums, and John West on quarterbox. So, opens with Young Girl. I already talked about that. Track 2, Sealed with a Kiss, the big hit. Again, pretty, not the best vocal here either, but some pretty nice Playboy harmonies going on right at the beginning too. Carl's doing the first part and Tom is doing the second one. Not much to say about it. Brian Hyland cover, and it's now become one of his most known, Gary's most known songs. Track 3, Windy, Association cover. And many people say, no, it's not as good as the Association because they only had, you know, 3, you know, not much harmonies going on here. But if you can respect the Playboys in terms of vocalists for what they are, they do an amazing job here. And I like the harmonies on this. You know, Tom and Carl just kind of going off on each other. It's great. And Gary's vocal on this one is actually pretty good. Like Tom's little guitar lick in there, of course. And yeah. Track 4 is, I'm pretty sure, an original. Well, for them, not written by Gary or anything, but it's their song. It's kind of a slow ballad, and I do not think this, it's either not from these sessions, or it's from the sessions, and they just they changed the pitch like 2 octaves. He does not sound like Gary Lewis. It sounds very weird. Very, I don't get that. Anyway, track 5, you get a Boys in Heart cover, I Wonder What She's Doing Tonight. Love Jim's drumming on this. And the, I'm pretty sure Gary and Carl, with Tom there in the back, kind of lower, harmonies on this is really good. And Gary's vocal on this is decent. Very, very good cover, though. The album closes with, I believe, another Gary, of course, not written by him, but another Gary original, Pretty Thing. Got a double-tracked Gary on this one, and he actually sounds pretty good here. And I like the harmonies right at the end of the verses. Pretty cool. So that closes side 1. Side 2 opens up with Judy in Disguise with Glasses, which is not one of Gary's best vocals here. But again, a really fun cover. Track 2, Elusive Butterfly. Pretty good vocal here, I would say. I think John's playing the little thing at the beginning on the quarterbox. But overall, pretty basic, cool cover. Track 3, How Can I Thank You? I'm pretty sure this is also an original. I think this might be my favorite from the album. Really great track. I think this could have been a pretty good single as well. Track 4, The Flip Side to Sealed with a Kiss, Sarah Jane. And this is credited to Snuff Garrett, which again, he is now back producing this. So I don't know what the whole deal is with that for him. Some producing it at points, then leaving, then coming back. I don't know. This says it's written by Snuff and Jerry Fuller, who also wrote opening track Young Girl. I think it's about Gary's wife, because I think her real name is Sarah Jane. So I think that's like a miscredit or something. I think he might have wrote some of that, but I don't know. Tom's guitar in here is very, very good. John's quarterbacks, just kind of going in there. And Jim's drums on this are really great too. And I like the harmonies on the chorus. The album closes with a Bobby Hebb cover, Sunny. Really good cover from Gary. Like Carlos' bass at the beginning, just, the basic bass line. But Gary's vocal on this is not, again, not one of the better ones. But I think it's still pretty good cover, very good effort, and some nice harmonies from the Playboys. So that basically closes out Gary Lewis and the Playboys. Now, again, it's not their best, but it's a pretty good album, everything aside. So, Gary, I think they were now, he's still in the service, I guess, but they weren't recording much. I don't know why. So then we got this, which again is from the same photo session, from the same photo session as the cover of Now, as well as this, but we'll get to this in a second. So, I mean, they just had to put out compilations. I don't know why they weren't recording, but who knows. And this is, the band line that's been on the last 6 or 7 albums. Okay, so you get a pretty nice gatefold on here. Not as good as the Golden Greats one. Of course, this is more Golden Greats. The inner part is not as good as the Golden Greats one, but still a pretty good effort overall. And they could have done better with this track listing. They use old songs that are from before the first Golden Greats. I don't get that, but a pretty good track listing overall. You get My Heart Symphony, Where Will the Words Come From? You Don't Have to Paint Me a Picture, Sealed with a Kiss, Ice Melts in the Sun, Needles and Pins, what? You're 16, Down on the Sloop, John B, Girls in Love, The Loser with a Broken Heart, Jill, and Lies. So a couple of those really could have been replaced by other songs, possibly from Now, or, a couple more from Listen, or things like that. The album, again, like I said, Now was his last charting album, so this went nowhere. Did not chart at all. So, but it's a great listen all the way through. If you want to get into Gary Lewis and the Playboys, start with Golden Greats and more Golden Greats. That's where you need to go. So basically, yeah. So again, they're still just not recording much, I guess. I think sometime in the late summer of '68, they recorded Closed Cover Before Playing, which we'll get to in a second. I'm not sure about that, and I'm not sure who plays on that. It might be the basic lineup, or it might be some kind of other random lineup that I have no idea about. So, we get this, because again, it's another Sunset one. And it's a very good listen all the way through, very interesting choice of tracks. But again, you also get a nice picture from that fantastic photo session, and a humongous thing of Gary. This is a pretty good album cover. I think it could have been used for, maybe possibly Now. But I'll just go through the track listings real quick. Ashley Got the Nicest Size, Happiness, New in Town, Must Be More Than Friends, Ice Melts in the Sun, Tina, I Won't Make That Mistake Again, Pretty Things, Sarah Jane, and Looking for the Stars. Very interesting way to close it, because they say, and now, here Gary Lewis and the Playboys, and then the album closes. I don't get that, but it was 68. Actually, that came out in 69. Not sure when, though. So then we get this fantastic masterpiece. Again, I'm not sure who plays on this. Might be our basic band, or it might be something in between the basic band and then the band that's on the last 2 albums. So, Gary, he was just gotten out of the service in, like, September 68, and, they put out the new single, Main Street, backed with, right? Yeah, CC Rider, which only got to 101 on the charts. And I don't know, but that was recorded, you know, around the same time as all the tracks on here, and that single is also on here. I'm assuming this was done late summer, you know, maybe, you know, September, August of '68, maybe some of it after that. But we don't have any way of knowing who is on this album. Normally, you know, you have some kind of way of knowing. I don't really get this inner thing, but, you got that. It's really nice. Got some pretty good liner notes. They just talk about closing cover. I don't know. It's pretty dumb liner notes, but they're kind of funny. The back cover, I think they definitely could have done more with. But a pretty interesting package at that. Again, just Gary on the cover as always. And you get Gary Lewis and the Playboys. You get that on all of them. Whatever. They never got the credits they deserved. So like I said, this could be our Tulsa band with Jim Karstein on drums, Carl Riedel on bass, Tom Tripplehorn on lead guitar, and John West on quarterbacks. Or it could be some other variation of something. Anyway, the album opens with Every Day I Have to Cry Some, which is a pretty good track. You know, a cover. But really good effort. Mr. Memory, I'm pretty sure, is an original. I like the pickup on this. I love the chorus, and they kind of go down, like, it picks up. It's really great. Track 3, Main Street. I guess you call it the hit. Really great. The Astronauts also do this. I don't know which one I like better, but Gary's version is really cool. Rhythm of the Rain, track 4, which would also become a single later on, and actually do decently well. It got to 63 later on. And some pretty great harmony from possibly our Playboys or a newer version. But I like John's if it's John on quarterbacks or it's another instrument, I'm gonna say it's John on quarterbacks, and Carl's bass in this as well, if it's them. Turn Down Day, again, great harmonies here. I think this definitely could have been a pretty good single, and it probably would have done well for them. Over You, another Jerry Fuller song. Pretty good track. Why am I saying that? And this is also produced by Snuff, this whole album. And it's arranged by Al Capps, who also does some stuff earlier on in their career with them. So, yeah, but really great. Side 2 opens with a song called Apologize. I'm pretty sure this is another original to him. But not, you know. But really great song. Turn Around, Look at Me, of course, is a cover. But I really enjoy that one. It's one of my favorites. I get a kick out of it. Picture Postcard. I'm pretty sure this is also an original. I could be wrong about that. But it's a really great song. And this album is also not on Spotify or, you know, it's on YouTube, though, if you want to hear it. Next, we have the B-side to Main Street, CC Rider. Some great guitar from maybe Tom. I don't know. But really great track. Let's Pretend. Again, I can't say much about it. Might be original, might be a cover, I'm not sure. But it's a really great song. Closes with I Think We're Alone Now, which was originally done by Tommy James and the Shondells. Love the bass in this, and Gary's vocal on it is one of his best, possibly the best on the album, or it's definitely up there on the, in terms of the album. Don't worry, we've only got 2 more to go. I know this is running a long time, holy cow. So, now by this time the Playboys had definitely, our Playboy, their classic lineup, had left. They were gone. Besides John, but he was basically gone. He wasn't going to be there much longer. They did one last Ed Sullivan Show appearance playing Main Street. And none of the Playboys are there besides John and, of course, Gary. Well, none of the original ones. And then there's just a couple other random guys that are not Bill Boatman and Alan Rosenthal, which people say that that's who it is, but it's not. At least from seeing them in other photos. Yeah, they did that, and John, that was like John's last thing with Gary, and then they were done. So, Gary's, again, I think he's probably still doing some kind of drugs at this point. But since Rhythm of the Rain was a pretty good hit, a pretty big hit, they decided to make an album around it. And of course, Rhythm of the Rain and CC Rider are from Close Cover Before Playing, and they appear on this album. So this is, I believe, came out, and Close Cover came out in February of '69 and did not go anywhere. None of these last few went anywhere. This album came out, I mean, it's basically almost the same front cover as it is in the, up close cover as it is in the back cover of this one. This came out, I believe, August of '69, August, somewhere around there, October, in that range. So, yeah, and so the two tracks that are from, might be the Tulsa band, are Rhythm of the Rain and CC Rider, and then the rest of the album is the new band of Gary on vocals and rhythm guitar. Here, let me look at the back of this. Arnold Rosenthal on bass, Billy Boatman on drums, and Charlie Casey on guitar. So this album opens up with Rhythm of the Rain, of course. You know, I already talked about that. Medicine Man, pretty fun track. I really like that one. Good Morning Starshine has some pretty nice harmonies from the new Playboys. Proud Mary, great guitar work. John Fogerty song. My Little Girl, originally done by the Crickets, written by Sonny Curtis. Pretty good drumming here. Great lead vocal from Gary. Now, that side closes with Hayride, which was written by Buzz Case, and also worked with the Crickets earlier on. There's a few Crickets-involved things on this album. Written by Buzz Cason and Mac Gaden. And that was also a single, backed with an instrumental called Gary's Groove, which is not on here, and that single went nowhere. But really great songs, some nice little horn things going on here, and some really great vocals. Side 2 opens up with Sugar Coated Candy Love, which was also written by the same people that wrote Hayride. This probably could have been a pretty good single, I think. Next we have Backdoor Key, which is written by Gary, Arnold, Billy Boatman, and some guy named Marcinko. I have no idea who he is. But I love that song, though. It's so cool. Three Cheers, written by Gary and Arnold. And I like the arrangement on here, but I like the arrangement on the last album, the album coming up after this one. So, yeah, Three Cheers. Really great song. It's one of his best. It's definitely a fan favorite. Orangutan, which is written by Arnold, is a really great song. Kind of a goofy song, but, you know. And then you get, CC Rider, which don't really know why this is on here, but, you know. And then it closes with a Jerry Allison Cricket, you know, Sonny Curtis Cricket, and a Snuff Garrett original called Nothing to Be Ashamed Of. And that's a really great way to close the album. It's pretty interesting to listen. And again, this album went nowhere, but, it's decent. Not one of their best, but, you know. And now we get... you get Gary Bearded. I'm on the right road now. Well, Gary, I mean, from your looks, I don't think you are. But, it was the 70s. You know, who was on the right road in the 70s, honestly? I mean, you know, but... What, we're gonna forget about that. So you get the new band, on the back. When was the last time we got a picture of the Playboys? And this is also not credited to Gary Lewis and the Playboys. I don't believe it's even credited to the Gary Lewis and the Playboys on the vinyl. Yeah. So again, there's two singles from this album. I saw Elvis Presley last night, back with Something Is Wrong, which went nowhere, and I'm on the right road now, and Great Balls of Fire, which went nowhere. So, we're gonna get into this, because we're almost going on 45 minutes now. Again, these are all originals. I will tell you who wrote what when we get into it. And this has got some pretty interesting liner notes. I think it's pretty cool. There's some guy named John Galley playing the Roxachord and piano. What the heck is a Roxachord? I don't know. Maybe that's John West in disguise. No, I doubt it. He was probably being home and being a hermit like he was later in life. So it opens with Something Is Wrong, the flip side to I Saw Elvis Presley Last Night, written by Arnold. One of my favorites from the album. Times Are Changing. It's not The Times Are Changing by Bob Dylan. It's kind of a country thing, written by Arnold and Bill Boatman. I Saw Elvis Presley Last Night, which was, like I said, an A-side, written by Gary, Arnold, and Bill. I'm Ready If You're Willin', which is not, which is, it's the song Backdoor Key on this album. I don't know why they retitled it, but it's the same take. It's not anything alternate or anything. And I already told you who wrote that. Track 5, 3 Cheers, which is on that album. I like the arrangement on here better than on there. So it closes with the one cover on here, Great Balls of Fire. And I like Gary's screaming in this. It's really fun. But for it being the only cover, it's a pretty decent cover, and it's one of the best songs on the album, considering everything. Side 2 opens with I'm on the Right Road Now, which is written by Bill Boatman. Pretty good song, but, you know, I'm Gonna Shoot the Moon, track 2. I don't know what the heck was going on there. Again, they probably were taking so much drugs at this time. Written by Gary, Arnold, and Bill. Co-op Farm, which, this is weird. I think there's some kind of animal sounds in there. I don't know. It's written by Arnold. He was a very versatile writer. Track 4, Orangutan, another repeat from Rhythm of the Rain. Again, I already talked about that. Silly Girl, track 5, written by Arnold. Again, not very memorable. And the closing track, Roll Over Rover, written by Arnold and Bill. Again, you know, it's definitely a pretty, it's a decent closing track. It's, you know, it's pretty cool. But, yeah, them trying to be hip in the 70s, it went nowhere. The singles or the album. And so Gary was getting pretty depressed. He was depressed during this time because they didn't have any success. So he was taking drugs because of that as well. All kinds of things were happening. And at this point, you know what happened to the main lineup of the Playboys. Of course, Tom Tripplehorn died, Carl Riddle died, Jim Carstein is still alive, I'm pretty sure Dave Walker's still alive, I'm pretty sure Dave Costello's still alive, Al Ramsey died, I don't know about these guys that are in this lineup. And in terms of John West, he apparently lives as a hermit now. Nobody knows anything about him, if he's dead or if he's alive. And of course, we all know that Gary is now currently touring with some kind of lineup of the Playboys. There's no original members in it, but there really hasn't been any original members in it since 1968, and that was John West. So, but I consider everything up until this lineup here is an original lineup. So anyway, this went on for a long time. I'm gonna quit. So, bye. I hope you all enjoyed this very long 3-part thing of the history of Gary Lewis and the Playboys. Thank you very much.